tech data tells us we're good? That's a great question. Just chilling. Yeah, keep people engaged, Jen. Do you know what I mean?
We still got 84 viewers right now.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I'm getting sound.
Yep, we got it.
I'm getting sound.
Right, perfect. You're live. They're saying on here you're live.
Woohoo! All right, people. This is happening. I have sound?
First question.
All right, I have sound. So I'm going to start over like from scratch, if that's okay. This is so weird. I have never done a town hall with no town. This is just a hall and me and hanging out with a video camera. I imagine this is what like radio people feel like, where they're just, talking to the masses, but you have no actual proximate connection to them. And so this is weird for me, weird for you. I can follow you along on here, so I'm just going to have my iPad with me. And you can type questions into the chat, which is right next to the screen there. And then tech person next to me over here is putting them on a screen for me to see. And so I'll get to all the questions and start moving along with those, and we'll knock it out. Everything's on the table. Anything you want to ask about how the church is doing or what's going on around here, thoughts about X, Y, and Z. Even though I'm a pastor, I have thoughts about almost everything. And even though I rarely share them from a pulpit, I figure like town hall is a good place just to chit chat and have a good time. I'm also happy to talk about any questions you have about spirituality or God or theology, because in the midst of a coronavirus thing, we have lots of questions about that and just whatever's on your mind. And so I'm here for at least an hour. And if you have no questions, then I'm not sticking around because, I take it back. I am sticking around because someone is watching my children right now. And this is the first night I've been away from them in almost 6 weeks. So I actually might be here till midnight now that I think about it. I hadn't thought that through. All right, so I'm going to jump in with just one random thought before I get to the first question that I see on the screen. I got a note from someone that San Clemente, California is in the national news. So not just LA Times, it was first in LA Times, but this was someone in Florida that found an article that had been shared nationally that, the skate park up by where I live, they dumped 37 tons or so of sand in it because the skateboard folks were not following the posted signs of do not trespass. So the aggressive measures around here are pretty serious. And I will take a moment to say this very publicly. Churches right now are in the news like crazy. Do you open? Do you not open? And in my opinion, this is how I think about these things. Whenever it comes to an ethical issue, like opening or not opening, or any other ethical issue that you think about, there's nothing in the Bible that says you should open X number of days after a coronavirus shutdown in Southern California. The Bible doesn't give us any kind of specific information on these things, and so you have to get the general vibe of what Scripture teaches. And the basic way I think about everything is what's the most loving thing to do. If the most important commandment in the Bible is to love your neighbor as you love yourself, then you have to say, all right, well, what's the most loving way I can love my neighbor during a time like this? And it is actually kind of a difficult challenge because on the one hand, the way I love my neighbor is by not being socially close to someone and by closing things down so that we can reduce the amount of spread of a virus, which saves lives and protects healthcare workers. So the loving thing to do is to not do services and to shut down campuses, shut down church, because if we don't, we are a part of the problem of the spread. On the other side, some people argue that the way you love people is by gathering, committing to fellowship with one another, and by not forcing people to be alone. Obviously, we've erred on the side of saving people's lives over connecting with someone's need in order to be close. And we're doing everything in our power to stay connected with you via digital platforms when we can't do it physically. And that's where we've erred on the side pretty heavily around here. If you come to our campus these days, it's a ghost town. Becky Abel, who is our facilities coordinator here at the church and events coordinator, the week that all this was going down, I said, Becky, run to every Home Depot within 20 miles and buy cameras, like these little Wyze cameras. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're these little cameras, and just on your app, you can check in, and so we can view the whole campus remotely from our homes, wherever we are, so that we have a good feel for it. But by and large, not a lot happening here, and it's a big shift for me, big shift for everyone. And all right, well, I'm going to start getting to some questions here, and if you don't write any in, you don't want to see what kind of nonsense questions I'll start making up on my own. So I encourage you to start doing that. And tech person, you're prepared to type them in, right? As you see them, you're monitoring. All right, first question from Mike Dollar. It says, I wanted to tell Chris that I missed his Easter suit from last year. Are there any plans to resurrect that beauty? That is a great question. We talked about this. My first year here, I don't know if you remember, for the 9 a.m. service, I wore like the full-on robe, my pink bow tie. I mean, I got calls from Vogue, GQ, a lot of other like pastor modeling agencies really were, I had to turn off my social media. It was going insane because we were crushing it last Easter. This Easter, though, what did I wear? It was not inspiring, I guess. I can't even remember myself. I think we just went for a buttoned-up shirt and tried to look nice. I wore slacks, though. That's how seriously I took it. Honestly, these days, I'm impressed if I wear pants, because most days it is anything elastic is what I wear. The fact that right now I've got khakis on and a button-up shirt, I was leaving the house to come to this thing because I figured I should look presentable, and all my neighbors were looking at me like, what's going on? Why are you dressed like that? Because no one has to dress up anymore. It's an unusual thing. But on the Easter front, I hear you. I think we need to build in some proper traditions around clothes for the pastors on Easter that should be a little over the top, just to accentuate the specialness of the day without being distracting to the message of the day. So I'm all in. I'll figure this out. Maybe I'll wear a robe just for fun one of these weeks. When I was in Miami, I had to wear a robe almost every week because it was a cathedral, and that was the vibe. I didn't do it every week, but I wore it a lot. And those things are hot. If you want a pastor that's wearing some fancy stuff, I'm going to need some serious investments in cooling equipment for this stage. Otherwise, it'll be a swampy place. There's too much information. Chris Hermer has a question, though. All right, Chris says, how about an all San Clemente Church celebration Sunday we can all worship again, maybe at San Clemente High School football stadium? All right, is that like all churches or just us? I'm not really sure. We should probably think that through. This is a true statement. We weren't able to pull it off for a lot of reasons, but one of the things we wanted to do on Easter was to actually have an Easter service in a parking lot all together, where we bought FM transmitter equipment, and folks could drive in like to a drive-in movie theater, and we would have like a movie theater screen. Everyone stayed in their cars with you could have your masks and gloves on in your car, windows rolled up, whatever it was, but you could tune in to a radio station and hear the service live. We thought that would have been fun, but the logistics of that were not only challenging, but not a lot of huge parking lots in town that we could pull off. We contacted the outlet malls to see if we could steal their space, but they said that it was not a good idea. I can understand that. There is, on the National Day of Prayer, which I think is May 7th, I was talking to Holland Davis, who's another pastor in town here. And what we're trying to do is connect all of our churches for a National Day of Prayer here in the city. And so we will do something on that front in order to connect with other churches in the area. But I like your idea of some sort of like mass gathering. I will say that if there's one thing we're hesitating on right now is mass gathering. So I don't know when that would be. And two, it's going to take a while. When all this is done, I don't know if it's going to be like we can gather in groups of 50, gather in groups of 100. I imagine the state of California is going to start setting guidelines for that here sooner in the future. And when and how we gather together again as a church is a question mark right now. It's not something that's set. And I will say this, probably won't look the same immediately whenever we can gather together again. Because whenever we get like an okay that some people can come to church, and there's still going to be a lot of vulnerable or affected people who can't come. One of the things that's not going away is online streaming. So even when we can gather here again, we're not getting rid of the ability for people to connect online either. So when we gather, that's going to be a piece of what we're doing. We also don't know if we'll immediately go to 2 services right again or how that's all going to go. One of the big picture things around here is that we are taking things day by day and week by week rather than month by month, quarter by quarter, year by year. All of our long-term plans are on pause. And so when it comes to getting together in a big stadium, definitely could do it. I actually love the idea. It'd be pretty cool. How we would plan that and when we would plan that and how that would work, those are the kinds of things we're finding really difficult right now. Because even if we say, logistically to pull off something like that takes a week or 2, at the minimum. Normally, if we were in operations, it would take 2 months. But these days, we're just kind of going day by day, so we'll figure that out. All right, I see a question from John Kavlik on there too now. All right, so John Kavlik says, has there been a marked change in giving over the past 4 weeks? That is a great question. The answer is, what do you mean by marked? I would say it's doing okay. Our minds have been blown, to be honest, by how faithful and generous our congregation is in the midst of what we feel to be a national, international crisis. And so we don't have 100% of the data right now, even though we're monitoring things very closely. What we've noticed is that giving is down single-digit percentage points, maybe a little bit more. Not dramatic, though. And so one of the things that's really encouraging to us is that giving has remained moderately stable, and the operations of the church are still ongoing. And so that is awesome. But I will say 2 things about that, at least 2. One is the leadership of San Clemente isn't making our decisions on a week-to-week basis. We're trying to look for trends and understand these things. And one of the things we're prepared for, or getting more and more prepared for, is that if the economy sees serious economic pain over the next few months, I don't want to use the word recession, but if we go into an economic period of decline from a countrywide perspective, we have to be prepared at San Clemente not to say that we just expect giving levels to be high. And so we're making the adjustments that we need to right now across the organization to be ready for it, while simultaneously having our minds blown by the sacrifices and commitment of the people of the church. I've had people call on me on a regular basis saying, Chris, I'd like to make my yearly donation right now because I want to make sure that things keep going. And more people have been doing that, and we are so thankful. More and more people have been giving online, which is incredible. We went from a church where I would say close to 90% or so of our giving was done in person, like Sunday services, where only a small handful of folks were really embracing the online giving side. And that is almost flipped, and not quite, but more and more people are going to the online thing, and that's made a big difference for us. And I just want to take a moment for all of you that are at home watching right now just to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Not really personally, because it's not about me, but just God's been so faithful to this church for so many generations, like not just years, not just decades, but for literally generations, God's been doing good work here. And, before I arrived, one of the things that's amazing is this church was kind of teetering a little bit because it had had so many leadership transitions for a while. But, when I walked in, it wasn't like a church that was like, well, we'll see how this pastor is and then make a decision. The folks around here were committed. And we're experiencing and thankful for that commitment every day around here right now. So thank you. That's a really awesome question. All right. Those are the questions that we have so far, right? Y'all aren't asking any questions. You got to type something in. I mean, I can make stuff up. Trust me, I can make stuff up. I am more than capable for that. But you got to type in something. Otherwise, this is going to get wacky soon. I'll throw out a question for myself really fast. for you all and say, what is recording messages like with no one in the audience? I don't know if you've thought about that before, but for me, trying to give a sermon where no one laughs during the middle of it when I tell a joke, actually I take that back. No one really laughs when I do it live with people. But no one definitely laughs now. I have to tell a joke and hope you're laughing at home, but I don't know anything. I get no visual or tactic feedback in any way, and so whenever I'm talking to a camera, it is so different. I've found that it's the musicians that are struggling the most almost. They're so used to a sense of almost performance where they need the audience and they need the interaction in order to do it. And I think it's been tough for folks. For those of us that are here recording, it's definitely different. If you've never done this before, and I'll be honest, I had almost zero experience recording one-on-one with a camera with no audience prior to coronavirus. I've done live worship stuff, but it's been weird. It's been very, very unusual. We just talked to a camera and we're like, I wonder if someone's going to watch it. We have no idea. And so, all right, I'm going to keep going with Catholic questions. John, you're my hero, buddy. You're crushing it. John Kavlik says this: have we continued supporting our mission partners? That is an awesome question. So an email went out to mission partners, I would say a couple weeks ago, letting them know that it is SCPC's firm commitment to maintain our mission giving levels through the end of our fiscal year, ending on June 30th, 2020. So whatever our allotted budget was for any of our mission partners in the last fiscal year, which for us starts on July 1st, we are crushing that and sending those dollars. And we've also just reached out to them personally. I was sending an email today to Larry Hall, who is our Malawi partner, and just connecting with him and letting him know that we're still committed. And I actually think today checks came here to be signed. One of the things that has been tough for us here as a church is, our accountants are off-site. They're somewhere else. And so in order to get a check put together, for example, we had to move all of our processes digital. And then we also have to mail the check one place here because then we have to sign them as well and then send them out. So things take longer than they used to on that front, but we're knocking it out and moving forward, which I'm thankful for. All right, I got another question. Ross and Karen. I love you guys. I miss you, Ross and Karen. How cool is this? And by the way, you guys are in my small group. The night we were supposed to have a small group meeting and I missed it, I am so sorry. We had, I think it was just kids. Our kids, so we're trying to work and have a life, but also we're the only caregivers for our little ones because our families are up north, and man, it's a full-time gig. So that's where we were. I miss you. But you asked this. We're wondering what's happening to the people who are arriving at our campus looking for help. We're wondering what is happening to the people who are arriving at our campus looking for help. It's a good question. I would say this. Because our offices are closed, we have a sign on the door that says, if you're looking for help, follow these instructions. And I think I don't have the sign memorized. It's out there somewhere. But it says something like, you can call this number or go to this website or leave us a note, that kind of stuff. And so if folks are coming physically here, there isn't too much we can do unless they can contact us digitally, because we're technically not allowed to have an open office anymore. And so that's a tough reality. But I do know this, that if you contact us online, and there's even a button at the top of our website, I think, doesn't it say help? I think it says help, yeah. So that's one of the ways that we're connecting with people. And I know that some of our folks that are homeless in our community that we love very dearly that are connected to our church, there's been a few individuals within our congregation that are making sure they have special care, from meals and even access to bathrooms. I probably don't want to say too much about this, but we've gone so far as even one or two people within our congregation that need bathroom access. We have someone that stops in at the campus every day just to take care of them. And I know there's been others at our church that have been trying to access a benevolence fund in order to get grocery money to some of our more vulnerable folks. And so that's happening. But if you just come to the office, the truth is there isn't a ton happening. All right, I'm going to keep going. Oh man, Mike Dollar. I love you, man. He writes, are there plans on bringing back the man bun? Man, all right, so it hasn't been brought back yet. I have to be honest with you all. My hair drives me crazy. It's not long enough yet to be properly bunned, to be properly man bunned. And, part of it is just an experiment. The other far end of that project is the way I was going to do it was end of summer. If the junior hires could get enough kids to go to camp, I was going to let them cut it. But at this point, the coronavirus situation has created optimum space in history for man bun growth. Sounds like a disease. Man bun growth. And so I'm just gonna keep rocking it. It's happening. And so I apologize to those of you that have to see me on a video screen. It's hard enough in person. The other day I was watching myself on the TV because it was pre-recorded. I looked at it and I've asked the camera crew not to do any more side views of me. I'm like, what happened? All right, but anyway, I'm working on it. Thanks for that question. Number 7, from Paul Henry, says, how is the staff doing? How is the staff doing? That's a great question. And I will say, quick answer was probably shock. When this coronavirus stuff started to happen, it completely upended everything that we were doing. Completely upended everything that we were doing. And so one of the things that quickly happened that was a shock to us all was our job descriptions were kind of thrown out the window. We had to go into crisis mode where if you had a heartbeat and you were good at something and we needed something, it was just like, we need you to do this now. Can you do this? Can you do that? And so it was pretty emergency mode on that front. But as this thing settled in, one of the things that's happened is we've had to reduce the hours of the vast majority of our staff. And within the first few days of this crisis, we took some immediate action on that. First one is the pastors are tithing back 30% of their salaries. And so that's that was step one. And the reason why we did it as a increase in tithing rather than reduction was because when I contacted the presbytery about whether or not we could reduce our salaries, they said no unless we had a congregational meeting. And I was like, how are we going to do a congregational meeting? This was week 1 of the crisis. And so we just upped our tithing in order to represent a reduced salary. And then we did a 60% pay cut across the board. And that was immediate just because we knew 2 things. One is, for a lot of folks, there's less work to do. And 2, we wanted to prepare this church and get it in a strong financial position, given that there may be significant financial consequences to this virus and how it affects us all. And so, how's the staff doing? I'd say it's been really hard. It hasn't been easy at all. I wish I could go deeper into that one, but my heart breaks. Because one of the things that we're doing as a church is we've had to pause a ton of ministries. Children's ministries, for example, is on complete pause. They've got not complete, they've got that Wacky Wednesday thing they launched. On the facilities staff side, we've got a couple projects going on around here, but not much. On the administrative reception side, obviously offices are closed, and so not much there. But yeah, it's been a shock to us. And I think we're kind of adjusting as we go, but trying to stay connected and praying together and connecting via Zoom whenever we can. All right, number 8. Great question says, and this is from Anonymous, are the new deacon and elder elections on hold until we get back together? That is an awesome question. I'm so glad you asked. The answer is yes, they are on hold. So within the first week, I called an emergency session meeting. I would say it was in the first few days. I don't know if you recall, NBA canceled Wednesday night, and by Thursday, toilet paper in the country was gone. Like, that's how fast it happened. And I had, I think, an emergency session meeting set up 48 hours after that initial crisis of people figuring stuff out. And one of the motions that we passed at that meeting, it was more of a resolution than anything. It said that we will pause the election process until we gain further clarity about how this virus is going to happen or is going to play out. And what I anticipate to happen is one of 2 things. One is in terms of elections, what we'll need to do is we have to have a congregational meeting in order to have elections. So we have two options for how we do this. One is starting in like a month or something like that, we have an online nomination process, and then that nominating committee does all their work via Zoom, and then we call a congregational meeting via Zoom webinar sometime in like June maybe, let's say, in order to have elections, and we could go that route. There's a good possibility we may go that route where we'll have elections for elders and deacons in June, and if we do so, there's a good chance that it'll have to be online. Another option, which I could also see happening, is that we maybe delay the elections until we're able to gather again physically, just to buy us some time. We wouldn't want to rush this process if it wasn't right. And so the latest I would say that this would get back on track would be fall. That wouldn't be out of the question. We could have a congregational meeting maybe in September, October, and then just kind of figure that out. But the honest truth is I'm not exactly sure. We don't want to do anything out of order. We don't want to do anything that we're not supposed to. But at this point, what we're trying to do with all of our elected leadership is keep them real tight and functioning strong right now. And then we'll bring on the new class as soon as we're able to get that together. That's not an easy thing, but all right, next question. Shannon Steer, what's up? Says, what was your favorite class at Princeton? So my wife knows this, and most of my colleagues do. I didn't go to very many classes, ever. I was really bad. I was famous for, I think I went to one chapel in 3 years. There were some classes I didn't go to once. I've always been the worst student I've ever met. I don't know how I ever graduated from any school I ever went to. If God clearly had a purpose for my life, because I've tried my best to destroy it consistently. But a class that I liked, I like professors more than classes, and this is the advice I give to college students, is I always tell them, never sign up for a class, because the class could have the best title, but it could have a terrible teacher. And I say, when you go to a school and you take classes, take teachers, not classes. Find the people that you want to learn from, that have the most knowledge, that are the most compelling, that challenge you the hardest. Sign up for those classes with those teachers more than anyone. And I remember, the classes that I enjoyed were from a guy named Bruce McCormick. He taught theology there, and I took almost every class he offered. He really challenged my thinking and pushed me very hard in so many fronts. There was another guy that I loved named Sang-Hyun Lee. He was a professor that I loved dearly, and he just made me think so much. And so, primarily things around theology, but it's always more about professors than anything. Kathleen Piercy, how's it going? You said this, is there a plan to do some kind of VBS via streaming if we're not able to have it on campus? We've been having these conversations. That's a great question. The truth is I don't know. My gut instinct tells me I doubt it, but that doesn't mean no. VBS would be in July. Today it is still, is it April still? It's April still. And we're gonna, I think I said this earlier in this little podcast, or whatever this is, town hall, is we're kind of taking it day by day, week by week at the most, but it's very difficult for us to project what things will be like a month out or 2 months out. And so when it comes to VBS, we've got something in the pipeline. We've got people that are rearing to go and ready to go. If we're physically able to gather again at that time and pull it off, I can pretty much guarantee you that our staff will find a way to make that happen. But at this point, we just don't know. And so I'll have to ask you to do what I'm asking everyone to do these days is we'll be patient and we'll do our best to ramp it up. Whenever we're able to go again or start up again, the key thing I think it's important for you to know is there isn't going to be a day where we just press go and everything's back to normal. Instead, what it'll be is we gradually start opening up pieces. and coming back. I imagine some of the staff will be able to come in before we can do Sunday mornings. And I imagine we may launch parts of Sunday mornings before we're able to do a mass gathering of a congregational meeting. And I imagine before we do any of that, we'll have to start having conversations with individual groups, because we may have folks in our congregation that are vulnerable to this for a long time, and we want to be sensitive. And so we're going to have to figure that out as we go, and I honestly don't know today. They shut down school, though, through the end of the year here in Capo Unified, and so we're preparing for the worst. We're hoping for the best. That's kind of the best way to put it these days. Chris Ermer says, how can we say thank you to our talented music ministers and pastors from week to week? Whew, that's a great question. How can you say thank you? Obviously, one of the easy ways is what you're doing right now by even asking the question. There isn't very many of us. I don't know if you know this, but whenever we broadcast any of our services, we make sure that they're socially distant and that we're being very careful with all that, but we also limit the number of bodies in the room. So there's not very many of us. The max I've allowed at one time is 4. My preference is 2, just to minimize people and bodies coming in and out of the campus. And primarily, I've been relying on the Knutsons, John and Brianne, a lot. Brianne is our director of worship here at the church, and she has been doing an incredible job pulling together these services as well as the living room Monday through Friday. John Zekiel is often on a piano over here, and he does a great job. He's been moderately consistent. Josh has been the guy on drums, and we're thankful for him. He grew up in this church and has been here for quite a long time. We got Natalie on piano and singing a lot. What other musicians do we got around here, John? Ellery sometimes. Yeah, we got a few, but I think the best way to say thank you is just send a note to Brianne, who's on our website, the director of worship, and she can pass that along. Thanks for doing that. Mike Dollar and also Patsy are saying, what's the status of the Israel trip? What is the status of the Israel trip? Man, you all, there was so much momentum on that trip a month ago or 2 months ago. We had like 100 people lining up outside of a door on a Monday. And I'm like, is the lotto at $3 million and we're now a site to buy something? Like, what's going on? And so what I did is I sent an email out, I think a month ago, saying hold off and wait. And what I'm probably going to do on the Israel trip is give it a complete restart. Right now it's scheduled to take place in spring 2021. And we may keep those dates, we may not, but what I'm going to do is, because I think there might be some people who are financially impacted in such a way where maybe yesterday they would have been able to go on the trip, but today they're not able to go on the trip because of loss of income or loss of job or just nervous about travel, and there's a lot of other factors that they may have. Because all that's new and coming, I don't want to tell someone, hey, you're committed to go because you signed up. And so what I'm going to do most likely in a month or two is have a re-opt-in where we almost like cancel the last trip, not the dates yet. We'll set the dates when we feel like we can have more confidence about our ability to go. But then what I'll do is I'll allow everyone to re-opt in if they want to go. So what that means is I think if anyone who gave with a check for the last Israel thing, that check has not been deposited yet. And if for some reason you paid in a different way and that money was deposited, we'll be giving and refunding that back to you. The Israel thing's still going to happen. We're just not sure when, and there's going to be a new season of signups for when that happens. All right, Paul and Marilyn say, how long will the living room continue? I don't know. How long is this whole thing going to continue? We're not exactly sure yet how all that's going to go. One of my concerns as a pastor right now is things like that started with a huge, we're pumped, let's go with it, are now making me think, okay, is this sustainable? And what we're trying to do right now is make sure that the living room is as sustainable as possible and consistent, and it's been going pretty well. I have a hunch that we'll continue the living room for as long as we can no longer physically gather. That would be my hope. I can't make any promises on that, but that would be my hope. All right, I'm going to go to the next question. Sherry Hightower says, what is the church doing to help during the crisis? That's a really great question. Well, I'll start with two things, but then end with a bunch of stories maybe. First thing we did to help was I asked Pastor Candy, I said, Candy, I know you're a busy person, but I need you to direct 100% of your energy to one project right now, and that is getting a database calling system together. And so anyone who I think we've got 1,200 names that are in our membership database. And what we've done is we've set up, I think, 70 connectors who are reaching out to a group of people underneath them and making sure that everyone within their network is doing okay. And that they are also asking if you have any needs or if there's any way the church can help in terms of bringing groceries or assisting you in any way, we are there for you. And so that's been a major piece of what we're doing right now. And it's been awesome to see the church doing that. I mean, I've gotten wonderful, thoughtful emails and texts from folks saying, thank you so much for these folks that called me. I didn't even know they had my number, but they reached out and wanted to bring me groceries. And I've seen people step up on that front that's so inspiring. It's like, man, thank you for being the church right now. And then on that side too, another thing that we've done is partnered with Triton Air. One of our church members is a small business leader who owns Triton Air. And they have a portal through their website where people can say that they need help or need groceries. And so Triton Air is kind of partnered with us where we're one of the ones helping bring support, groceries, assistance to people in that database. And so we're kind of connecting wherever we can. And there's even more. I found out that one of our small groups, which is primarily composed of older women, we've partnered with a group of doctors who are checking in on them and making sure they're okay. So there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes through the Connection Ministry. And that's been our number one priority. In terms of caring for folks when we can't be around physically. The second one is this, it may not seem like much, but having these cameras running a lot, having moments of connection like the patios on Sunday, where you can be watching one of our Sunday services and then connect to a patio where you get like a live Bible study and connection with other people. And so what we're trying to do is shift SCPC to this digital platform so while we're physically distancing, we can still feel like we're connected in a very real way. So those are the two main things we're doing to help during the crisis, beyond also, of course, all the small things that I've mentioned earlier in this broadcast. All right, Laura says, we love participating in the Easter parade. Did you receive any feedback from the community? When is the next one? Man, I'm so glad that Easter parade went well. It was a little bit of a risk. I was nervous people were going to get out of their cars or be irresponsible in some way, but everyone did great and it looked awesome. And we don't have one planned again, but we could. In terms of community feedback, I can't say we've done any exhaustive feedback study, but the impulse on social media was very good. And one of the things we found was, we intended it to go stop by like a couple people's houses at the church who we knew were shut-ins and could use some love. But it ended up being just random folks from our community that felt supported. So when we drove past the people that we were looking for, turns out everyone thought we were there for them too. And so that was pretty cool. Dana Leonard Chidella says, what does the church look like on the other side? For me right now, questions like that are what are occupying probably 75% of my brain. One of the things that the session's done is they've set up a task force composed of key finance leaders, human resources leaders, Pastor Jesse and I, who's our new executive pastor. And we are wrestling hard because we know that the church probably isn't going to look the same as we were going into this for a lot of reasons. And it's not just the church that's thinking about this. It's every industry. It's every family. It's almost every person that I know isn't just thinking, how do I get to the next day, but what's life going to look like in a year? I'm thinking of all the poor college students and educators, and that whole world is completely turned upside down. But on the other side of this, I honestly can't tell you what that's going to look like yet. We'll do another one of these town halls and more communications with the church. And the way I'm trying to do this is, rather than tell you in one mass communication how everything is going to be in the future, our goal is consistent communication with you with the best information we have at the time. This is not going to turn into a White House briefing at all. There's no Dr. Fauci around here, but there is just, I think, a lot of good hearts that are saying we're going to do everything we possibly can to do the best that we can. When it comes to the other side, one of the things you should know is I'm starting a new sermon series that'll kick off this week, that goes for at least 6 weeks, that I've put together, called New Normal, where we're going to be talking about, what is the church going to look like in this new world that we're living into? And so the way I'm thinking about it, Dana, is over the next few months, we're going to be talking about that. It's not like I'm presenting a plan where I know. And I think that's healthy. I think that you plan way out, but you also have to live day by day. And in the middle of a crisis, you're definitely more in this camp than you are in this camp. But we'll be as transparent as we can with everyone on that front as we go. Pat Marvin says, what have you been struggling with the most during the crisis? Thanks for the personal one, Pat. I love it. I would say the personal struggle for me the most these days has been how to balance family life and work life. It was always a struggle to balance family and work when I was able to drop them off for like 6-7 hours a day, and have a spouse that was, more available as well too. And so, now I'm trying to juggle a workload that's radically increased along with childhood and family responsibilities that never take a break. Theodore, my 2-year-old, naps in the afternoons. That's the golden window where we give an iPad to the older one and try to crush as much work as we possibly can. My wife and I have been experimenting where she works Monday, I work Tuesday. But what we found out is that didn't work because neither one of us could take a full day off at a time. So that's been the struggle, just trying to make that work. And one more personal struggle I'll share, and I think I was going to talk about that this weekend, but I haven't decided yet, was just today we did a burial service for my grandmother on my dad's side. And so the whole family was able to be up there for a graveside ceremony with, just a handful of people. And so knowing that she was in the hospital and was suffering and that no one could see her, and that even for a service for her, that I couldn't be there when everyone else could, was really hard. So those are some of the things going on in the Atwood family these days. Jan Foucher says, how can we help our seniors, members who can't get out of their house and shop for food, etc.? Great question, Jan. What I would do is I would go on the website, and under the help button, I think you can even, or I think there's a volunteer button, is that right? Assist. All right, so at the top of our website, there is a little link that says assistance or assist. If you'd like to help in some way and have resources, the time, the energy to do that, you click that button, enter in your data, and then someone will contact you and connect you with needs. One of the things we found out real fast was, maybe this is a good thing for our church, is we had a ton of people say they're willing to help, and not a lot of people early on saying that they have needs. And so what's starting to happen more and more is those are getting closer and closer together the longer this crisis persists. And so if you can help in any way, put your information in there, and sooner or later we'll make sure that we connect you with what to do. Hey, I have a number. We have like a couple hundred people watching this right now. This is insane. 262 devices that are connected right now. So that's insane. Well, I'm so glad you're here. This is awesome. Welcome to a little town hall. Phil Kavlik says this: are you still training for the half marathon? Whoo! All right, no. My gym is shut down, and I'm trying to go for walks in the afternoons these days. But one of the things that's happening is the poor Atwood house. It's like we're on permanent spring break schedules. My 2 children, 2 and 4-year-old, get this, they don't wake up until trying to get stuff done, because I know once they wake up, so it makes me laugh because so many people are in so many different categories right now. Everyone's suffering. But the ones that I think are suffering the most are I don't even know who's suffering the most, but you got the ones that are lonely. And I know folks in our congregation that are just alone. And I can't imagine what that would be like, because my problem is the opposite. I can't find 10 minutes in order to be alone in my house these days. Yesterday, I turned to Jen, and it felt like I was asking for the universe. I said, Jen, I just need 15 minutes to go pray and meditate for like a minute. Is that okay? And she looks at me and she's like, you better be good at it and fast. And I run up the stairs, just for a moment. So when it comes to like aggressive training, that stuff's out the window, but it'll be back for sure. All right, Denise says, what is the status of getting sermons on DVD for non-internet shut-ins? That is a great question. I imagine what we'll do is we'll take that to a staff meeting that we have on Monday, because I heard about that request this week, that we have folks in our congregation with no internet, but they do have DVDs. And so I don't even know how we do that. We'd probably have to purchase some sort of maker. I got a tech guy way in the booth. Let me just yell that question, Denise. Is that even possible, John?
We can make it happen.
He says we can make it happen. Yeah, so maybe what we can do within the next week is we'll get that set up in the booth. It'll take a few days. And then we can start building a database of people who would need that, because that would be great. We'd love to do that. That's a great idea. All right. Cindy Henry says, what can we do as congregants to support you all? That's a great question. Man, you guys are showing off as a congregation in all the questions that you ask. Couple things. One is, given that our mission is to inspire people to be wholehearted followers of Christ, that's why we exist. We are a group of people that doesn't exist for anything else except that when other people see our lives and hear our words and see what we're doing as a church, that they get excited to want to learn more and follow Jesus. That's why we do everything that we do. So the first thing I would ask for all of our congregants is that you would, in your own life, do your absolute best to be Jesus' hands and feet in whatever area you are in. Part of what that means is by being a good neighbor to the people around you, to your family as well, as best you can. So that's just a really big deal. You can share the gospel, and you can even share the messages that we have if you'd rather do it in that kind of way. But you can really share the gospel and be Jesus' hands and feet wherever you are right now. Even if you're alone, you can do it digitally. Second thing is continue to pray for the church. Pray that God would use this crisis as a time to reignite our passion for our mission, to reignite our sense of confidence that even in dark times, God is going to do incredible things in our midst. I've seen more innovative energy around reaching people in the last month than I may have seen in the last year. What God's doing during this time right now is absolutely incredible, and I'm thankful for that. Obviously, those that are continuing to give, God bless you. Thank you. It means so much, not only to someone like me whose compensation is somewhat tied up in the church, but it's more just a sign of saying, you know what, God, we continue to honor you and support the work that you're doing in the world, and that makes a big difference. If you want to be one of the assisters, you can go on our website and click assist and continue to bless people in that way. But the hard reality is there's not a ton you can do today because of how much we're trying to take seriously social distancing. As this progresses, we may find more and more ways for that to get more tangible, but for now, I think that's what comes to mind. Next person, Paul says, can Victor de la Cruz contribute to sing more during the services? And another person says that his voice is heavenly. I think it's his curly hair. It's gorgeous. I'm jealous. And that guy's jacked. He does CrossFit. Did you know that? He's a CrossFitter. And so I'm always really jealous of him and impressed. But I think this is one of the things that you should know if you're a congregant. All right, so in our mind, we want X. We love Victor to sing a lot. Then there's like, I would be like, yes, he does sing a lot. Okay. There's a lot of other factors. Let me just give you a couple small ones. One is his life in turmoil these days? Like sometimes he's available, sometimes he's not. Whenever we're screening for this, sometimes, he may have a conflict with his other work there where he's trying to get something done or taking care of family. And so there's just a lot more X factors in that than there ever used to be. Another one with like Victor or other singers is we've had some that have said, because of social distancing things, even though we'd love to participate, we need to back out. And so we honor that. And so there's been some folks that would normally be here doing more, but that have wanted to not do it in order to be safe. And we take that very seriously. We've also had, we've been trying to limit the number of people here as well. And so that's been kind of playing a role in the number of faces and people that you see. But I will let Victor know that you are reaching out for him because we love him. I saw I forget if it was Good Friday or Monday, Thursday, that guy was crushing it. And he is extremely talented. We brought him in, this September? And he has done an awesome job, not only revitalizing the choir, but just bringing energy to our service. He's more involved in the 9 a.m. service, I think. All right. It is 7:58. We did it. We did a town hall, y'all. Let me just think, is there anything else I want to say before we end? If you're still logged on, I just want to say thank you for joining me. This is very unusual that we're doing it this way. There's a part of me that's like, man, we should do all our congregational meetings this way where I don't have to see anyone. I thought about doing this from my house, like at my desk. I don't even have to wear pants for these things anymore. By the way, my bad idea that we didn't use, we were trying to name the living room. We spent like a whole day around the office yelling out in the hallway names for what we could call it. I thought we could have called it Worship from the Waist Up, because we're sitting there, but they decided that wasn't a good idea, and they're smart. I'm glad. I'm glad we have a staff around here that feels confident telling me that was a bad idea, which they did. Okay. God bless you all. It's been an honor to see you, and I want to emphasize this, that if you have any questions, you don't have to wait till a town hall. You can always just contact the church office by emailing church@scpres